only came with the Iranian Revolution. That represents a superficiality of understanding that would be as though we Muslims only just learned that there were two branches of Christianity, Protestant and Catholic, and had no understanding of the Reformation, the authority of the Church, or the ideas that led to the proliferation of Protestant sects in the 16th and 17th century. Or as though we thought that most Americans were branch Davidians. In the face of such lack of knowledge, about 1/4 of the world's population, one may reasonably ask what the role of the university is in setting this straight. It seems clear to me that at the most basic level, the university is responsible for helping its students to learn not only the simplifying principles that the various learned disciplines have found useful in understanding our world, but also the rich complexity of history and language and culture that make real-life problems interesting and difficult. MIT now teaches both of these lessons well and vigorously, but it seems not always to have done so. Indeed, I am told that at the opening of MIT in 1865, one local newspaper reported with a note of triumph that the creation of MIT, quote, sealed the fate of that system by which our youth waste the best portion of student life in burrowing into the grammars and dictionaries of races less enlightened than their own, unquote. MIT has clearly come around to thinking that those less enlightened races have something to teach, and that teaching helps the university fulfill its potential. I would argue, however, that the university's potential is met not just in developing the intelligence of its students, but also in bringing them to understand the importance of engaging themselves in solving the problems of the world. The great political and social changes around us are creating opportunities for service that promise to be deeply rewarding to persons with the engaged intelligence to be successful at important but difficult work. Let me take one example to illustrate the challenging encounters to which today's graduates might apply their intelligence. Tajikistan is a mountainous country in Central Asia of 5 million people, more than 90% Muslim. As a republic in the former Soviet Union, bordering China and Afghanistan, it had a strategic importance that dwarfed its natural resources. The Soviet Union, therefore, invested heavily in Tajikistan, building roads and power stations, supplementing food supplies and equipment, developing the educational and health systems. The result was a highly educated, sophisticated, but largely rural population that managed its affairs well at home by the rules of the game at that time, and provided well-developed human resources for export to other parts of the Soviet Union. With the fall of the Soviet Union, things changed for Tajikistan. Subsidies, which had provided most of the republic's budget, and for the remoter parts, 80% of the food supply, were cut off. The result has been hunger, shortages of fuel and clothing, and deep uncertainty about the future. long suppressed ethnic tensions between indigenous Tajiks, neighboring Uzbeks and Kyrgyz, and immigrant Russians, amongst others, became more evident as groups jostled for political and economic control. Religion emerged from private houses, where it had been practiced covertly for 60 years, to become a manifest force. Tajikistan has become the focus of one of the most interesting encounters of the day. It is here, and in other Central Asian republics, that the three great cultures encounter each other: the communist world, the Muslim world, and the Western world. It is here that those three cultures could forge a success that would contrast starkly with the brutal failure in Bosnia. The result of the encounter in Tajikistan may determine much about the way history unfolds over the coming decades. So it is worth thinking a bit about the stance that each of these cultures might take in preparing for this encounter. That thought might lead one to ask what it would take for this or any encounter to be constructive. I suggest that there are 4 prerequisites for success. For each of the cultures, the result should, first, draw on its strengths, and second, be consistent with its goals. Third, the result should be a sustainable improvement in the current situation. And fourth, the transition should be humane. Each of these 3 cultures has something to bring to the solution of the problems of Tajikistan. The West has many strengths, but prominent among them are science and democracy, with their public mechanisms for self-correction, and also private institutions, liberal economics, and a recognition of fundamental human rights. The Muslim world offers deep roots in a system of values emphasizing service, charity, a sense of common responsibility, and denying what it sees to be the false dichotomy between religious and secular lives. The ex-communist world, although it failed economically, made important investments in social welfare, with particular emphasis on the status of women, and was able to achieve in Tajikistan impressive social cohesion. Just how to combine these competences to solve Tajikistan's problems is not clear. But if the outcome is to be sustainable, it seems necessary to concentrate resources on the development of private institutions, of accountable public institutions, and of human potential. But how to get from here to there without inflicting cruel damage on the people already buffeted by shortages and change? Again, the way is not entirely clear, but one should strive to retain the powerful ties of mutual support that in different ways bind individuals together in Muslim and communist societies. And one should see that the impressive gains in health and education are not lost in the transition, for it would be unconscionable to allow, for example, the equality of men and women that has been achieved in Tajikistan over the last 60 years to be erased in the transition to a market economy. These are the prerequisites that I hope the representatives of these three important cultures will keep in mind as they have their encounter over Tajikistan. If the encounter of the Muslim world, the West, and the ex-communist world takes account of the need for each to draw on its own strengths, to be consistent with its goals, to strive for a sustainable, improved outcome, and to ensure a humane transition, then the encounter will have been as successful as it is important. Indeed, the importance of Tajikistan has, if anything, increased in recent years as events in neighboring countries continue to remind us. Turning back to today's graduates, I hope that these four prerequisites applied equally to the encounter that you are just completing with MIT. Knowing the quality of faculty and students here, I have no doubt that the encounter between you and the faculty has drawn on your respective strengths. I hope each of you kept consistent with your goals, even as they may have evolved over your time here. The quality and sustainability of the outcome will be determined over the course of your lives. But reading the smiles amongst the graduates, I judge that the transition, your time at MIT, must have been tolerably humane. In conclusion, I would recall the words of former MIT President James Killian Jr. Quote, "We need better linkages between science and humanities with the object of fusing the two into a broad humanism that rests upon both science and the liberal arts and that does not weaken either. We need bifocal vision to thread our way among the problems of modern society," unquote. That need to use the power of complementary academic disciplines remains true today. What is now clear is the need also to draw on the wisdom of different cultures in solving those problems. Thank you, and please accept my best wishes for a lifetime of constructive encounters. Thank you.